Good evening, YouTube. Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. It's a late one because it's been a very eventful day on my end. A lot of car troubles. Yikes. That being said, we have some very pressing weather to talk about, and we're going to start out by looking at the Storm Prediction Center. In case you already weren't expecting it, here it is. Today, we have been upped for a moderate risk on Tuesday. We've been talking about this storm system for a bit here. We've been very concerned about it. So here's the latest. This looks oddly familiar, doesn't it? It's a little further off to the west here, a little bit, but it's pretty much the same thing. Two moderate risk areas. There's a chance of these conjoining, and who knows what could happen. I'm not going to say that there's going to be an upgrade to high risk, but it can't be ruled out. There is chance of a capping inversion being in place here. And we're going to go into that a little bit later in the video. But for right now, the threats for these are pretty significant. Damaging wind threat, surprisingly, does not have a hatched risk. I do think that is going to change, though. That will probably also get upgraded to a potential 45% area. And then, of course, there's the tornado threat, where we're at 15% in both areas, with a chance of these two gaps here connecting. So we're going to be keeping an extra close eye on this throughout the course of the evening. Tomorrow we will be going live as soon as I get off work. So be ready for that. It's going to be a long stream. There could be nocturnal tornadoes that even go into the overnight hours. Probably try to stream till midnight or 1 if it's at all possible. But beyond that, I probably won't be able to do that because I'll still have to work, unfortunately. But that being said, let's go ahead and get into the other parts of the video here, because we also have a very stout wintry side of this system here. We're going to start out quickly by looking at the trough to kind of get an idea of what exactly is going on. This is the upper level trough here. Here we are going into Tuesday afternoon. Look at this maxed out trough that starts to develop here as we get into the late evening hours. Right before we get towards 06Z, this is, of course, towards the higher levels. This isn't going to strengthen quite as much as a low-level jet will at night. But to see it charged up to where we're almost at 100 knots is never a good sign. So this is one telltale sign that we could have some big-time problems here. And then when we switch over to the low-level jet, this is where things get kind of alarming. We're going to shift this up about 16 hours, actually, about 18. Start to see a little bit of a maximum forming. It's actually around Minnesota, which I find interesting this time around. That cold and warm air is right on this little fringe right here. And with this storm system, that low pressure that we saw in the 500, pulling in that cold air behind it and a moisture return, that's going to be traveling very far up to the north. We're going to see some pretty hefty snowfall totals on the back side of this and on the north side of this system here. So we could also be seeing blizzard conditions along with severe weather in areas just off to the west here. But look what happens as we get into the overnight hours. Look at this area of low-level jet maximum that's popped up here, heading into 60+ knot territory easily. And into the overnight, this only strengthens. This is a very alarming signal here. So if you are in Illinois, if you're in Indiana, if you're in Missouri, Iowa, you need to be keeping an extra close eye on this, because these tornadoes will most likely be more nocturnal than the last ones. The ones on Friday were more so towards daytime tornadoes. Some of them were pretty photogenic too, so they were easy to see. That may not be the case this time. So it's very crucial that you heed these watches and warnings. So that way you have no issue getting through the storm here. Even though this says marginal tornado threat right here, I want you to take note of one thing, and I'm going to highlight it for you even. This hordeograph curve is very alarming. I've seen these hordeograph curves in very high-level severe weather outbreaks. So at this point, even if it's just a marginal tornado threat, right, like what you see here, you almost want to ignore that. It almost means nothing. I know that was crappy right there, what I just did there. But you need to keep an eye on. But if you happen to be under tornado warning, there's a good chance that some of these could be strong. Now, again, one thing that I said that could be a saving grace. Just give me a second here, switch back. But one thing that could be a saving grace here will be this value right here. Again, we're going into that in a little bit, but this is the capping inversion. This is a negative 346, so this is indicative of a strong cap. Eventually, I do think this cap will end up starting to break, but it could break at a time where this could limit severe development. So there is a fail option here. That's one thing that I do find very encouraging. Nonetheless, though, this can't be taken for granted. We can't rely on this to end up saving us from this event. I do still think there will be tornadoes. Just how significant they will be the big question here. So we'll go ahead and get out of this real quick, and we'll move this forward here because we also have a big-time severe weather threat that follows. Well, not a big-time severe weather threat. We do have a notable severe weather threat that heads into Wednesday here, and maybe even Thursday. But Wednesday, there is still a slight risk here, and there is still plenty of low-level jet energy here. We're getting towards 50. Still, some areas reaching about 60 knots. So this is more than capable of producing all hazards. I'm definitely leaning towards wind and maybe tornadoes. We may go live for this on Wednesday. We may not. Really depends on timing and what time I get off work. But we'll see what happens. That being said, let's shift a little bit over towards the surface and the thermodynamics for this threat, and then also look at the wintry side at the same time here. Here are surface temperatures. This is heading into Tuesday morning. Here are the cold temperatures right here, and here's our warm sector here. Look what happens by the time we get into 18Z. Widespread 80-degree temperatures. Big time warm sector right here. This is almost summertime-esque temperatures. So that's already not boding well for us. The capping inversion here seems a little bit weaker here, but the Cape values are very explosive. And we're in an environment that's very unstable. A little further to the north, I do think we could see a little bit of a failing with the Cape values here, with the capping inversion. Then over towards the south, if the cap breaks here, there could be a very nasty nocturnal threat here. We'll go ahead and look at the sounding as well, and then look at that. There you go. It's a very similar look to what's going on up on the northern moderate risk. So it's a similar deal, a little bit less favorable parameters according to the significant tornado parameter. But nonetheless, I do think that both areas are at pretty considerable risk for even some strong tornadoes. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on here, right on the north side of this, we got temperatures in the 20s and 30s here. We're going to end up seeing the moist sector come into play in just a little bit here. And then we'll see some pretty heavy snow all across this region through the Dakotas in particular. We may even see a little bit of activity across parts of Minnesota here, but we're probably going to already start to see snow falling in these regions over here towards Montana and Wyoming. But anywhere across this region here, we could see some pretty significant snow and blizzard conditions. I haven't seen anything on blizzard warnings just yet, but I'm pretty sure there's a few warnings in effect right now. So that being said, we'll get into that in just a little bit here. By the time we get towards Thursday, we could see some of this snow start to move off towards some of these same areas that got hit again. It's crazy how Iowa last weekend had those tornadoes on Friday, and then on Saturday they had snow wrapping around on the backside of the system. We could see a replay of that once again. So let's go ahead and look at the moist sector and see how this snow is also possible here. We went to the wind index, not quite what we were looking for. But even as we get into the late evening hours of the night, you can already see that moist sector starting to really advect to the north here. By the time we're already around lunch hour and just after that, those 60-degree plus dew points have already made it as far north as even Chicago. And then this goes all the way up towards even Wisconsin at this point. We got those 60-degree dew points. But there's enough moisture from this, and this is not even the richest moisture. You don't even need rich moisture for snow. But this little nose right here is going to work its way just a little bit off to the east here. And those 30 plus degree dew points are more than ideal enough for snow, potentially even some heavier snow. Because the thing with the cold air is it actually tends to be more dry. So you don't need dew points like this for snow, not even close. Dew points like what you're seeing over here, almost perfect for it. In fact, we can go ahead and look at the QT chart for that. And what do you know? There's the air temperature. There's your dew point, 19 degrees Fahrenheit on the dew point, 21 degrees air temperature. And then with a cold temperature profile all the way up into the high levels of the atmosphere, result is snow. Eventually, I'm going to do a whole video on how to read these QT charts and what their purpose is, and why I like looking at them so much. But that being said, that moist sector also persists through Wednesday and even into Thursday. Thursday, there could even be a severe weather threat around the southeast. It's a little hard to tell right now, but we'll get into that probably, well, we'll try to figure it out on Wednesday or maybe Thursday. But lots going to be going on tomorrow, so just be ready for that. Next thing we're going to look at here is the CAPE, or is the capping inversion, and the CAPE values. We'll start out with the CAPE values because this is a pretty key component to our severe weather here. This is indicative of the energy that's in the atmosphere. It's measured in joules per kilogram, and the higher the value, the stronger or more the intense the atmosphere is. And you can already see high CAPE values even over here towards Arkansas, parts of Texas. There are some storms that have been firing over here, but it's going to be relatively limited in nature. But when we get towards tomorrow, this is where things are concerning. Look at this little pocket right here where we're up to 3,000 plus joules per kilogram. If these storms can somehow remain discrete through that and break through the cap, this will cause a lot of problems. This isn't even one of the more impressive soundings, but but this purple number here, in case you can't see it, because I know it's a little small here, but this is over 4,000 joules per kilogram. This environment is absolutely ripe. It is explosive for severe thunderstorm development. To put it in perspective for you, it's a red flag when you see up to about 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. When we start doubling that, we're in an explosive environment. 4,000 joules is just insane to think about. And with the wind profiles over this region, these storms will very easily rotate. So this area is going to have to be watched extremely close. And look what happens as we get later into the evening. This area gets some extreme CAPE. And even then, without the 3,000 to 4,000 joule CAPE, just the 15 to 1,600 is probably the most dangerous areas, because that's where these supercells will be most likely to be discrete through here. Embedded supercells and tornadoes are all possible. We could see a bimodal event just like on Friday. But like I said, the more discrete the storms are, the more dangerous they are. So like I said, again, I'm probably going to say this a bunch more times in the video, but if you happen to find yourself under a tornado warning, do not wait. You should already have your course of action by the time a tornado watch gets issued. I do expect at least 1 or 2 PDS tornado watches issued. If you want to know what that is, that's a particularly dangerous situation. That is the highest level of tornado watch that can be issued for your area. So if you happen to see this get issued across this region, just know that it's serious. There's no reason to be scared, but that gives you time to prepare. So that being said, we'll now switch over to the capping inversion here. This could be a saving grace for tomorrow. That's what the hope is. Compared to last week, we didn't have much of a capping inversion. and it eroded a lot faster than what we're seeing here. But there is a chance that this can hold up for long enough to where we don't have a huge problem. Or at least this will limit the time frame, at the very least, of our potential severe event. But this right here is some of the strongest capping inversion available. But if you were to look and take a look at these hordeographs, these sounding profiles, it would lean towards a severe weather threat minus the dew point and surface temperature here. But if we fast forward this a couple hours, though, watch what happens. We'll hit that same area again. Boom. Different story here. But that cap is still strong enough to where maybe this could hold. Maybe it could hold these storms off. But if this cap breaks, these storms are going to grow explosively and they're going to be even more dangerous. So it's a very tough forecast to go with here. Off to the south here, there's still also a threat of, there's also a capping inversion. So there is a chance that maybe these storms to the south might be a little bit more limited. But if they do form, it's going to be a similar deal. By the time we get towards Wednesday, capping inversion is not an issue at this point. Storms will be able to fire. So the severe threat that will be over, we'll go ahead and show that real quick. But the severe threat that will be over this region here from the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, all the way down towards the southeast will not be quite as inhibited here. I don't see any chance right now of this being upgraded yet. Maybe more so towards the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes, but beyond that, I'm not too concerned with it. But now that we've seen all of this, there's only one thing left to do here, and that's actually to go ahead and take a look at what could happen with our snow potential. So, like I said, we already know the deal with the severe weather, and we're going to get a little bit more in depth with that tomorrow as far as the tornado concerns in particular. And maybe also hail, but more so with tonight, we're going to start to hone in on the snow threat towards the end of this video here. So snow's going to probably start to really take off as we get into the overnight hours across this region. By the time we get to the morning hours here, we got a nice little snow band that's developed from Wyoming all the way through South Dakota, parts of North Dakota, and then starting to sneak its way into Minnesota. This will continue to persist, and there eventually even starts to be some warm air that it vexes in here, and there's even a threat for ice now that's coming to the equation at the last minute. This doesn't look like it lasts for a long time. We'll see a period of ice for maybe several hours, and then we could very well be switching back over to snow. Then we watch most of the action starting to move off to the north and east, and then eventually north of the border. So really, it's only about a day's worth of snow to be concerned with here. Beyond that, I'm not too concerned, but the amount of snow that we could get is where my problem lies. I think that we could see some areas getting close to a foot here, and the other concern I have is the wind gust. Because that's one thing that this storm system will bring plenty of, even the areas that do not get severe weather. We can already see 20, 30 plus mile per hour winds in North and South Dakota in the early morning hours. And then as we get towards the afternoon and evening, we're starting to get to 40 miles an hour plus. That would be blizzard conditions at this point, whiteout conditions. You get these for about 4 hours of less than a quarter mile of visibility and blowing snow. By that point, you have a blizzard, and those have to be 40 mile per hour sustained winds. So at several points within the next couple of days, we could see some blizzard conditions. It's going to take a while before this storm system moves off and the wind moves off along with it. So we could see an extended period of blizzard conditions even after the last snowflakes fall. So it's some pretty dangerous weather even across this region. You don't necessarily need severe storms to have incredibly dangerous weather here. Not to mention, this is also going to cause big problems with the wind chills here. When those winds strengthen with those colder temperatures, watch what happens with these dew points. We're going to start to get into those negative temperatures. And when that starts to happen, frostbite can occur very quickly. Fortunately, a lot of you folks here are very much used to this. So that being said, I'm not too concerned with you guys. You probably will see some wind chill advisories, maybe some wind chill warnings. But this is nothing that you haven't dealt with before, and you've dealt with far worse. So I'm confident that you guys know what to do here. That being said, let's go ahead and look at the snowfall totals here. Across the board, Euro's going with a lot of areas reaching over a foot of snow. A little bit aggressive here, but all the models are actually kind of indicating this. Here's the Canadian doing a similar look. A couple areas could even see above 2 feet here, especially towards the northern part of Minnesota. Outside of that, mainly looking towards the mountains for the highest totals, of course. Here's the GFS doing a similar deal. Highest total seems to be a little further off to the west here. However, there is a little pocket here towards South Dakota that looks interesting where we could get up to about 3 feet. Do I think that will occur? Most likely no. But we're in pretty much a wait and see kind of mode with that. Same thing with these totals on the NAM, and then here comes the NAM 3 kilometer. This is one of our convective models. Still painting a bullseye over western South Dakota here, which I find kind of interesting. And then here is a British model. It's doing a pretty similar deal here. We'll also look at ice. And I'm not, like I said, with this moving so quickly, I think the ice totals are going to be the most significant north of the border here. Could see a few areas get up close to 0.2 of an inch. Maybe a 1/4 inch ice could cause some problems on the road. Maybe some areas could start to struggle with power, but the infrastructure here is a little bit better suited to deal with this kind of thing. This was somewhere further to the south. This will be a lot more crippling, I think. Even nonetheless, this still needs to be watched very closely. I know severe weather has become the main headline with this storm system, as well as the last one, but there were some pretty big time snow totals with the one before then. There's a little bit more of a drop over here to the south here towards the UP of Michigan where we could see some snow or ice, but that's going to also mix in with the snow, so that could limit totals but cause for a longer term cleanup there. Here's the blend of models, and this is the most fair of all weather models because with all the models that you see here, you get a blend of everything, and then you get a nice medium total through all of these because some of these get underdone and some of these get overdone. So the blend of models is kind of the hybrid point, so to speak, or the neutral point. That being said here, towards the UP of Michigan seems like where we would have the greatest threat for a little bit more towards crippling ice, but outside of that, couple of pockets where you could see up to about 0.2 of an inch ice here. Outside of that, maybe about 1/10 or less of ice is possible. We look at the blend of models for snow, though. Another bullseye right here, and I find that very interesting that the blend of models is putting in a bullseye over here towards western South Dakota. I wonder if this is towards the mountains still, but nonetheless, 2, maybe even 3 feet could be possible over there. Outside of that, we have a widespread area where we could see up to about a foot of snow, maybe a little bit more. And that's, like I said, that is partially a lot to do with the dew points. So obviously with severe weather being the main story, and we'll talk about that more in the morning, we have a very long day ahead of us, but we are not done with winter just yet here. So I know this was a long video. I'm going to have this timestamp for you guys, and I apologize for it being so long. But it's a very active time over the country, folks. Just make sure you are prepared for whatever weather is coming your way, and you should be able to get through it just fine. No time to panic here. That being said, this has been Tire Metalhead Weatherman. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. hit that like button, subscribe, share the video, and also let me know in the comments what you might be seeing in the coming days here. But again, Tired Metalhead Weatherman signing out. Have a good night. I'll see you in the morning.